how did you stay on the cusp of what was working, and where did that kind of come from? Where does the inspiration come from these things?
There's a bunch of factors. One, I would say, just like you were a protege of Gary Halbert, right? I was a protege of Jay Abraham, communicated on a daily basis and spent a lot of time together. He doesn't start his calls with his friends and colleagues and peers with, how you doing? He asks, what's working?
Yeah.
Like that's how he starts the question, right? What's working? And if you do that all day long, every day, guaranteed that by the end of the day, you know more than you did at the beginning of the day. And so I guess that kind of rubbed off on me a little bit.
You reminded me of my late Facebook traffic mentor, Kevin Hutto. He passed away. He was a phenomenal guy and a real genius in my humble opinion. And I had a very similar conversation with him in terms of like, where do you come up with this stuff? Because I always thought that he was next level in everything that he was doing. And his response was, I'm always helping people, and I'm always like, when people call me, I'm always helping them. And when I call people, I'm always telling them my business problems, and I'm always telling them what I'm trying to do. And, solutions and ideas flow that way. And I always thought there's so many entrepreneurs that are so closed. They're so restrictive. They're so they feel like they're holding on to like the keys to the kingdom, and they want to keep it all in, for themselves, and they don't want to share. And I really don't think those are the guys that kind of progress the farthest and are in the game for the longest. It's the ones that are constantly sharing where they're going, what they're doing, the challenges that they have, and helping other people. When you tell someone your problems, they tend to tell you their problems. When you tell somebody your dreams and your goals and the things you're trying to accomplish, they tell you theirs in return. And I think that's helped me a lot in business. Just constantly telling people what I'm doing, the problems I'm having, what I need, what's working for me. And it just comes back, and you end up creating this kind of circle of awesome sharing of tactics, and strategies. And I think that it's a very, very powerful answer to that question.
Also, I had a guy who ran my business. His name was Brian Johnson. Could never be a guru because like his Colby score was a 5.555, exactly like in the middle of the road, like complete vanilla guy. But he went to Harvard. He was a pilot, super bright guy, way smarter than me. And I don't know why he thought this, but he felt like one of his roles was to make my crazy ideas like actually happen. While he was working with me, like one day in passing, I was like, oh, it'd be so cool if we could live stream like from an event. The next event, there's satellite trucks in the parking lot. They're snaking ISDN lines through the hotel. But I think there was something to that, that I had a great executor that just felt like if I had a stupid, crazy idea, it was his mission to make it happen. And, so that kind of was the same thing with webinars, that we were handling the marketing for a Jay Abraham product called Masters of Passive Income. And at that time it was a teleseminar. And because teleseminars were pretty popular, and we had automated that. And I just said in passing, because like people had just started like doing webinars like Citrix Online. And I was like, oh, it'd be so cool if we could turn this into a webinar. Like if we could turn Jay's teleseminar into a webinar, have him be out in front with it. That was the extent of my like genius idea, just saying it in passing. And then Brian's mission of making it happen. So I would say that. I'd also say I have always paid careful attention to what resonates with me and try to understand why. Anytime that I'm scrolling on Instagram and I stop, I'm wondering why I stopped. What was it that made me stop? Mm-hmm. Right. and recognizing that I might not be the consumer for lots of things, but getting someone's attention is difficult. And if something got my attention, I want to understand why it got my attention. So I've always kind of looked at my own behavior, recognize how sometimes silly it is. Like, why will I always buy an iPhone no matter how much someone convinces me that a Samsung phone is better? Like, what's really going on there, right? And I want to understand that so that it makes me a better marketer.
I always say, and I take crap for this, but I don't read too many books, but I reverse engineer a lot of competitors. If I read a book, I usually get a head full of information. If I reverse engineer a competitor, I usually get tactics that I can turn into money in like 7 to 10 days. So for me, the time that it takes to read a book, I actually learn far more. I earn far more by like buying someone's funnel, reverse engineering what it is that they're doing, and implementing the cool ideas there. And it sounds like you've done that perhaps in a different way. But you said that there was a company that was kind of doing webinars, and they were outside the internet marketing space, and
Right.
you kind of took that idea and applied it here. I mean, that in and of itself is genius. Jay Abraham talks about that a lot, the idea of taking what's working from one industry and applying it in another. By the way, a quick reminder to press the like button, subscribe to this channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss all of the great tips that are coming in future episodes. Let's talk about creative there. You mentioned that a lot of the guys that are sharing things with you and Steal Our Winners, it's all about creatives these days.
Yeah. So one of the interviews I did was with a gentleman by the name of Nick Shackelford, who runs a 9-figure Facebook agency and has been a 9-figure agency for many years. He also was the guy that did the fidget spinner, and so very successful dude. And he, at that time, this was like 4 or 5 years ago, he was telling me that he was opening a second agency that was just focused on creative. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Oh, why are you doing that?" And he said, "It's only a matter of time until media buying is dead. They're slowly taking away our options. And I imagine sometime in the future, there'll be less and less ability for media buyers to target specific, and it'll all come down to creative." So he's very, very premonition on that. But so he said that to me like 5 years ago. What I did an episode about 2 years ago with this guy, Walter Birch, where he was talking about YouTube advertising, and he distinguished between opening up a YouTube ad in one of two ways, either teasing them on what's coming or injecting value within the first 15 seconds of that ad. And he called that giving them a taste. And I was blown away by that. And it made a lot of sense to me. And partly it made a lot of sense to me because some of the reports I wrote back in 2007 were all centered around attention. So it made sense, like that would be a better way to get people's attention. And I shared that episode with a bunch of friends of mine. And one of the friends I shared it with was Donnie French. And Donnie French is a copywriter that he's co-owner of a company called Performance Golf. Donnie tested it. And it worked. And so then he rolled it out throughout his company, and his company was in a big growth spurt during that time. So they spent like $56 or $58 million on advertising over the next 18 months. And everything, they did like 5,600 different tests, and they had 18 ads fully scale across all platforms. So that meant like spending over 100,000 on every platform of that ad. And of those 18 at 18 followed that format of injecting value right up front. But there was something that Donnie said in that interview that has haunted me ever since that interview, that really was kind of like an aside, but not the main point of that episode. And it was very different than what I had thought about, because I had learned direct response 30 years ago. And when I learned direct response, it was the offer, like, list, offer, copy, right? But when I thought about offer and offer being so important, I just thought about the offer itself. And Donnie said something in the interview that said an offer is only as good as the creative that can be created around it.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's such a different way of thinking. Because like when I was doing newspaper advertising, the offer was in the ad. Like the creative, like the offer was in, like when I did a classified ad, it was a summary of the offer right up there. Like it wasn't this idea that you create something distinct and separate from the offer and that you can judge an offer based on the creative that you can generate that brings people congruently to that offer. And he took it like as a fact. That's why it wasn't like a major focus of the episode, but he's been in direct response for 5 years and I've been in it for 30 years. And so to me, that was like a change of definition almost, right? Like I have to think about this differently. And then lately, I've noticed that, you know, because we have a lot of really top media buyers that are contributors to Steal Our Winners. And lately, you know, you can learn a lot from any individual episode because every individual episode is like, here's the result. Here's how we're generating the results. Like, here are the steps, right? That's what a regular episode is all about. But I have the unique luxury of being on all the episodes and being kind of a deep thinker. And so I get to think about what's the moral of all these stories. Is there one? And what I've noticed recently is that a lot of the episodes with the top media buyers that I've done, they are really excited about their creative testing strategy. Like that's what excites them. That's what's generating them results now. And that short form video is like an insanely important skill. I did this episode with Jordan Menard, and Jordan Menard was one of the best media buyers for info publishers until he decided no longer to be a media buyer for info publishers and went e-commerce D2C, right? But when he was media buying for info products, he helped scale Sam Ovens. He managed the Morrison Brothers. He did Bob Proctor. He worked for Agora. He worked for us, right? And he did an episode that he called The Three Magic Numbers. He had this case study where he had taken a client that was paying like $2.79 per click and brought like the click cost down to like, I think 69 cents, 78 cents, something like that. So like an 80% drop, right? And not only did it drop the cost per click by 80%, but the audience was actually a better audience. Like the CPMs were higher for that audience. And he started the episode by saying most media buyers make the mistake that to get to the best audiences in a niche, it's a function of lookalike audiences or targeting. He's like, I think I disagree with that. That's what he said. I think I disagree with that. I think it's a function of the creative. And then he talked about how he had brought this price, you know, from $2.79 to $79 or whatever. And he talked about these three magic numbers, and that the three magic numbers were percent that stops scrolling. He's, you know, when you get 40% or better to stop scrolling, when you get 5% to engage with the ad in any way, that means that they press volume, right? They comment, they emote, whatever, right? But they've done something with the ad. And you get 3% clicking over. Facebook seems to show it to better and better audiences because it's in alignment with what they want, right? That people are engaging, they're spending more time, they're doing things on the platform, right? Like these are all good signals for Facebook, right? So it, like when I shot that episode, I was like, wow, like, so someone with great creative could be paying 20% what someone with crappy creative is paying, right? You know, like, and that could be the difference between being able to scale immensely or thinking you have a loser on your hands.
So if you enjoyed this clip and you'd like to benefit from more monetization secrets, go and register now for Monetization Daily. You can go to monetizationresearch.com to get it. It is a free newsletter that is absolutely awesome. It is delivered to your email inbox, and it contains lots of great monetization tips, tactics, and strategies that you will love. Again, head on over to monetizationresearch.com monetizationresearch.com to get it now.